Now, the second half of the morning, I thought that we would look at the materials that you judge by touch. You see, there are certain facets of the environment that we judge by sight, shape, color, and so on. Other facets that we really can only judge through our sense of touch, especially in the beginning when we haven't got very much knowledge. See? And texture, of course, we judge by touch. Things, different degrees of roughness, smoothness. Very often you don't know anything about the texture until you feel the thing. What else do we know through touch? Temperature. See, at first the child doesn't even know that a fire is hot. You have to protect him. You see, we know a fire is hot, but you can't really tell it by sight until you have the knowledge that when it's red it's hot. See, so we know temperature by sight, by touch I mean, and what else?
Something that is soft or hard.
Hardness and softness, yes.
Consistent. Is consistent or not?
Yes, quite a lot of things. You mean whether a rubber ball will be pinched or not, yes. Weight. Because in time you build up knowledge, and if you see a bit of iron, you know it's heavy. But that's you couldn't until you had had experience with it. So you know weight through touch. The first piece will be this wooden board mounted in a very, very smooth, shiny paper, and in the very, very finest sandpaper. Now, I've said before, you must not give the children coarse sandpaper. It's only the very, very finest. It's 00 with us that you can use. They have very delicate fingers. Coarse sandpaper is very unpleasant to feel, and if they press, they could really skin their fingers. And because if your hands are sticky or dirty or too hot, you can't really feel well with them. You get the child to wash his hands in warm water and dry them very well, and perhaps even massage the fingertips for a second in the towel as he dries them. And then his hands are brought to this sort of stage of maximum sensitivity. And yours too. Please don't use these unless you wash your hands, because you won't feel so well, and also the material does get very dirty. And you place the board in front of him, and you feel as lightly as you possibly can with your fingertips. The sensitive parts of the body, the most sensitive, are the fingertips, the elbows, and the lips. Very, very sensitive to touch. That is why the lips are so sensitive, and that is why the baby at a certain stage puts everything in his mouth. You see, it's not that he wants to eat it or taste it, but it's because he is learning about it through touch. You see, when I had this little boy the other day with the cylinders, he took them out, and the first ones went straight into his mouth. I was in child education, I was in your department. And it was so sweet, because that's what happens, you see, they immediately put everything in their mouths. And they should be allowed to. They're not going to swallow them. So, we brought his fingers to this stage of being clean and the right temperature and so on. And it's the fingertips we use, and we must feel very, very lightly, holding our wrist up. Feel as lightly as possible. In fact, if you were feeling any more lightly, you wouldn't be touching at all. See, something you would have to learn, because the sandpaper letters and so on, most of you feel very heavily. You have to learn it's very, very light touching. And the more lightly you touch, the more you are aware. and the more you can feel the differences in texture. Now the exercise is only to feel the very, very smooth and then to feel the rough. See, we start with extremes always. And this interests the small children. Because although they have had texture around them, and you will find a baby hunting for things of different texture. You'll find him, our babies always have a blanket with a very wide satin ribbon. You'll find him at quite a young age hunting about till he finds this satin ribbon and then feeling it with real pleasure. At one time it was fashionable to have suits with velvet collars. And every baby you picked up would put his hand round your neck and begin stroking this velvet. It was at a very young age. But as time goes on, if their attention is not drawn to texture, they can grow up very unaware of texture. Possibly many of us are. So, now after a time, when he understands what he has to do, we give him a blindfold. Now these is exercises in which touch only is involved, that we use the blindfold. Because if when using one of your senses you cancel out the others, then the sense you're using becomes heightened. You know, if you are listening to someone on the telephone and it's not very distinct, if you shut your eyes, you actually hear better. Blind people get a very enhanced sense of touch and hearing. Now the blindfold is just plain white cotton. You see, folded 2 or 3 times, machine with an elastic at the back to go just over the ears, so it will fit any child. See? And being this white cotton is very easily washed at a high temperature, and it can go into the washing machine every week. And that fits any child, and any child can put it on by himself. The first time you use a blindfold in the class, be careful. You want to use one of those extroverts. You know, you always have some children who are so useful. They always want to come every time. They always want to try anything. You know? And they are the ones, they will enjoy the blindfold, you see. And if somebody enjoys it, then everybody else will like to. We much too much have the habit of always saying, oh, this poor child, he never joins in, I'll give him the first try. But he doesn't like the first try. He likes to see somebody else. They're very often intelligent children. They like to see things done several times. You have music or singing, they don't join in, they sit on the other side. You have a party, they won't come past the door. You see, they like to know what everything's about before they join in. And I've often found they're intelligent, you know. They don't just dash in and do it. So pick an extrovert and then everybody else will enjoy it too. So he puts this on and he feels with his eyes shut. Just first one side and then the other. So you keep your blindfold in a little case. You can have it whenever he likes. Naturally, if there's any eye infection in the school, you have to take the blindfolds out for a little while. But it's impossible to give each child his own blindfold, they get mixed up anyway. When he's had this one for a little while, then there's a second board mounted with 4 strips of paper of different textures. It doesn't matter if they're slightly different colors, or it doesn't really matter even if they have a pattern, because they are going to be, he's going to use it blindfold, and we have the very, very smoothest. And then we try to have them arranged possibly in sort of gradation. And again, the exercise is just to feel them, noticing the difference in texture. The second one is a beautiful one to feel. You often find the children just sitting feeling that one. So that he does become very aware of texture. Again, he uses a blindfold. But you must not have one in grades of sandpaper. I've seen that in some schools, and that is why I say it so strongly. To get grades of sandpaper, you have to use very coarse sandpapers. Unpleasant. And as I said, his fingers are more delicate than ours. Especially housewives, they get quite tough fingers. They're always having to pick up hot saucepans and things. So there, it's kept with a little blindfold, and the blindfold's in a case. Now we have a box with 8 wooden tablets, all the same size. The only difference is that they are mounted in papers of different textures. Again, there's a pair of each texture. We would spread these over the table. You will see that each one is slightly different in color. We would let the child feel one. At first, he's looking at them to see what he's doing. And then we ask him to feel the others and find the one that feels the same as this one. So he can feel the others until he thinks he has found one the same. I think those feel the same. All right, we'll put them together. Put them on top of each other or side by side, it wouldn't matter. Now take one of the others. Take that one. All right. Feel it. Feel it 2 or 3 times. Now, could you find one that feels like that? Think those are the same? Yes? All right, you put them together. About this one. Yes. All right, we put those 2 together. See if these 2 are the same. Yes, they're the same. Now, of course, really with the eyes open, he can tell by the color, he can really see the difference. But as soon as he understands the exercise, again, he has a blindfold. And he does it with the blindfold on. And then, when he's finished and looks at them, he can really see if he's made any mistakes. Because the different pairs have that slightly different look. And I think when you begin to use this material, you begin to be aware that how you yourself don't notice many of the qualities. And of course, Dr. Montessori always used to say that the materials were only useful for the children up to 5, 6 years of age who were in the period of learning through their senses or developing their senses. And also, in doing this, you do develop your senses. You are able to feel finer and finer differences. So just as you can see finer and finer shades of color if you work with the color material. With defective children, education is subnormal. It helps to educate them. It doesn't really refine their senses, though, as it does with the little ones. I once had a very interesting time. In the winter, I always gave courses in other towns in England, besides London. And some winters I went to Glasgow, a town in Scotland, which is a shipbuilding town, and where there's a very rough and very district where men are shipbuilders, have lots of money, but they mainly spend it on drinking, and they adore fighting. So it is what you'd call an uneducated area. And the education authorities always filled the course with their own teachers and paid for them to come. And one of the teachers who came was this man who was teaching art to the 11 to 15-year-old boys from this area. And I couldn't think why he came to the course, because I was only giving course 1 that year. And when I was talking to him, he said, well, I'm just desperate. These boys of mine have no interest whatsoever in art. And I can't, whatever I do, they are absolutely apathetic about it. They think it's a sissy subject, and they don't want to have anything to do with it. So he said, I thought I might get some ideas with you. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I don't think you really belong here, because what I'm doing is for children up to 5. And then, when I brought out this touch material, everything I brought out, he was terribly excited by it. And he wanted to take it down for his great louts, you know? You know, this lovely material. And when it came to the touch, he was absolutely insistent he wanted it. And for some reason I gave in, I think because he was so persistent. And he took this down to his class. And the boys loved it. And not only did they use it, especially the touch pairing, but they went down to the shop, the wallpaper shop, and they got a book of wallpapers. And of course, wallpapers are also with us for texture. We paper our ceilings in paper of vastly different textures. And the boys made 20, 30 pairs of textures. And because they didn't use them like the little ones, they felt them and they paired them. And then they sat over each other with a stopwatch to see who could do it the most quickly. And the same with the colour. They went down to the paint shop and they made ever so many pairs of the gradations. And again, their great idea was to time everybody and see who could do it the most quickly. And he got a wonderful result in art immediately. And he said, well, you see, they'd never had any experience. They'd never had their attention drawn to colors and shades and textures. And by having the practical experience, instead of somebody just talking to them about it, they at last understood what he was talking about. You speak about texture, and they don't know what you mean if they haven't experienced it. And these boys ended up by being very interested in art and doing very good work. For 2 years he worked using the Montessori materials in this particular school. He got his doctorate on the work he did. He began by taking photographs of everybody's hands. And they were very blunt and useless hands. And then samples of what they did with this material and how their art progressed. So I no longer say you can't use it with older children. But if you have a class and they have never experienced texture, you see, then it might be nice to use it with them. And make more pairs. but you don't need to with the little ones. Now materials, of course. Each material has a different texture. So you can have pairs of materials. And these are just cut out with pinking scissors. See, those are 2 cotton. These are velvet. Satin. Linen. Silk. And this is a fine woolen material. You really want the basic materials. You need wool, cotton, silk, velvet, linen, satin. Those are some of the basic materials, but muslin. And nowadays, some of the man-made fabrics, like the nylon and so on. But this is a very fine, very good woolen cloth. Now, you can't have too many in a box, so you could have more than one box. I hope in this box I have different materials. Yes, it's a thick, yeah, this is one of the nylons. No, that's a furnishing cotton. That's a rayon, see, and so on. That's one of the new knitted materials, new knits. Now naturally you would start with 2 pairs only, and take any 2 that are very different in texture. I think any of these are very different. And you get the child to feel them, both by feeling them very lightly with the fingertips, and also by feeling them very lightly between the fingertips and the thumb, you know, the way we do test materials. And when he's felt each piece, you then ask him to find 2 that feel the same. If he decides those 2 feel the same, he puts them together. See if these 2 feel the same. He must feel very lightly. Now each piece, each pair is a different color or a different pattern, so he can tell by sight. And so therefore, as soon as he knows what to do, he wears the blindfold and tries to pair them. He spreads them out on the table, finds them, the blindfold on, finds one, and then feels for the next. When he's decided which 2 are the same, see, then he puts them together. The other 2. And as soon as he understands the 2 pairs, he could have the whole box. I find there's about 6 pairs in the box. It's a good number. Now, should he make a mistake, imagine he mixed the linen and the cotton, though they are very different. Then when he took the blindfold off, he would see that he had put the wrong thing together. Or if he had mixed the silk and the satin, see, then at the end he would see that they got wrong pairs. Again, when he's had a certain experience, you can then use the language smooth, rough, letting him feel this is very smooth, this is rough. And you would teach the names of the materials. See? This is velvet, cotton, linen, satin, silk. So, and they really love learning the names of the materials. Especially little girls are very interested in their clothes. As soon as they know the words, then they can talk about things. They'll come up to you and say, your dress is made of wool. Or, my dress is made of cotton. And if at any time a particular fabric is popular, you know, we have so many man-made ones now that different years a different material may be more popular for children's clothes. One year there was a one of the brush nylons that everybody called Bush Baby. You must have had it here. Maybe you didn't call it. They had these silly trade names. But you immediately had to put a pair of that material in the box because the children would just take the box and look for it. You see. Have you got anything? I think the knitted fabrics are the fashionable ones this year, aren't they? What is back this year? Corduroy. Yes, then you would need a pair of corduroy. But that's Georgette has suddenly become popular. Georgette is one of these sheer flowered materials. Exactly what my aunts wore to parties when I was growing up. The dresses are exactly the same. You know, it's come full circle. To me, it looks so terribly old-fashioned. But whereas my aunts wore dainty shoes, the girls wear great clodhoppers underneath. Anyway, you would need a pair of Georgette. I think the first touchboard, yes. I think the fabrics you find that they're sort of 3 before they come out. Anyway, you can always try, and if you find the child doesn't manage, you can put it away. Try again later. But the first touchboards, yes, the youngest ones like those very much. Now weight, here again we have wooden tablets, all the same size and shape. And you have 3 sets. They're made in wood. And you have a light, a medium, and a heavy. Different woods have different weights. Any balsam or any of the pines are very light in weight. And then the hardwoods like oak and beech are sort of medium weight. And anything like mahogany or teak is very heavy. You must have the tablets in separate boxes because you need to take at first only 2 sets, and the 3rd set is left in the cupboard. You need the lightest and the heaviest to begin with. And this is the only exercise where you have to sit opposite your child. And you get the child to hold his hands up just above the table. Not on the table, because then the table takes the weight. And to spread his hands out. And you take a tablet in each hand. And you put them one on each of his hands. And you ask him to tell you which is the heavier. You don't understand?
Is the child blindfolded?
No. And if he says this one is the heavier, you say, well, put the heavy one here and the lighter one here. Now, try that again. Hold your hands up. See, and you simultaneously put them on his fingertips. Like that. See? Not on the palm, because the palm is pretty insensitive. It's the fingertips that is now, which is the lighter. He says this one, you say, well, this is your lighter part. That's your heavier part. Now, could you remember always to put the heavier ones here and the lighter ones here? See, and you carry on with that. If he makes a mistake, then at the end, the color of the wood shows the mistake, you see? Now when he understands the exercise, then he does wear a blindfold. Perhaps I'd better have one of you come and do it. Would you like to come to speak here with the chair? With this chair? Would you like to take this chair? It's the opposite to me. Can the camera get that?
Maybe she's watching the monitor to see.
Ah, yes. But you can't get it on the film. Sit sideways, sit there. It's the wrong place, but easier when you're opposite. Now you hold your hands just about the table like this. Not touching. Now I'm going to put one on each hand. Not quite so curved, not too stiff. Can you tell me which is the heavier one? That one? You put it here then. Put the lighter one here. You have to try again. Put your hands up. Which is the heavier? Yes, right, you're going to put the heavy ones there. And you're going to put all the light ones here. Now I'm going to give you a blindfold. And see if you can do it without looking. See? take this blindfold off and we look. Yes, they're right, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Well, after a time, you know, they can manage wise. Now today, you're going to mix up the pile. See? I think you could put the blindfold on and just pick up any two for yourself. You can pick them up and balance them on your own fingertips. Decide where you'll put the heavy and the light. Take any two you like.
Picking up different ones.
So you see, they can manage alone. That's it now, you've finished.
I kept picking up different ones. I expected to pick up two lights.
Yes,
but I
it
always-
often happens you pick up two the same. When you do it like that and then patch it. Realize you've got two. Well, when the child is doing it easily, then he can have either the heavy and the medium or the light and the medium. And then it would be much harder. And finally, he could have all three sets and have to divide them into three piles: heavy, medium, light. You want the weights to be fairly near. I think it's approximately about 5 grams between each set, which is very little, because you want them to be able to distinguish really fine differences in weight. Dr. Monsoy, I think in the method, she says how one afternoon the children mixed them all on a table, and they all stood round in a group, picking them up in turn, and how they kept laughing and saying, "I can see with my hands." Yeah. And when you hear people talking about this silent classroom, when you read her book and how often she says the children were bursting into peals of laughter, you know that the silent classroom wasn't her idea of a children's classroom.
What were the medium ones
and oak and what's it?
Well, there are various woods used at different times. Teak and mahogany are so very expensive now that usually it's a fabricated wood, wood made out of wood shavings or something, has to be used because they're very, very rare and expensive. But the lightest is either balsam or one of the pine woods. And then one of what we call the sort of temperate hardwoods, oak, beech. What else do we have? Birch, probably. I'm not sure of the weight of that. We don't have so much. Oak, beech, elm, holmwood are very common with us. They're getting to be expensive, but my old sets have teak in them, and that's very nice. It's really.
Miss Humphrey, when she was doing that blindfolded, what if she had picked up two of the light ones and maybe
Oh, she easily could have done.
that one was heavier?
Well, she might have realized they were the same. She might not have.
What would you do as
I wouldn't have been there. She would have been sitting there working alone. But at the end, if she hadn't recognized they were the same, at the end she would have had a mistake.
I'm presuming that you never give them, when you're presenting a lesson, you never give them like two light ones.
Well, that would be a little bit difficult, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And also, you never trick children. That would be rather like tricking them. But they would get that when they had a mixed pile and were doing it alone. If you say, find which is the heavier, and you give them two of the light, you're not being very truthful, are you? So you don't try. And it would be much too hard for the first exercise. But they do get it, and you see them puzzling away. And very often they poke the blindfold up to have a look. So there are also ways in which we can give them experiences in pairing things of different smells. And again, it's a pity if we don't become more aware of smell in the environment, because there's so many things that have these lovely smells. Now, when you give them things to pair, you must always choose pleasant smells, attractive smells. Yes, I say this because I go into classrooms and I see horrible things being used, you see. And you must also use things which are safe. I went into one classroom and they had these jars with the materials loose, and one of the pairs was pepper. If any child had taken a big sniff of that pepper, they would have been terrible. Pepper, which would have been very dangerous if they'd taken a big sniff of it. So you must have safe things. It's best if you sew your materials into little bags about the size of the container. Now, it's easy to get your own containers. I found that most chemist shops have little screw-top jars, quite small, because they put ointments into these, or face creams. So that you could, they used to cost about 5 cents each. I don't know what they cost now. But you must have airtight jars. Or you can buy little glass containers with a screw top, small ones. They use them in chemistry labs. I went along to the lab here in Thompson. These happen to be small plastic square containers. It's rather nice if the containers are transparent. They don't have to be, because here you see I've used two different color materials, so that these red will pair with these blue. See, that's quite a help. But otherwise, you could have a colored mark on the lid to denote the pairs. You wouldn't have more, you would have about 3 pairs. You can't have more because smell is volatile, And if you smell two or three different, too many things, almost at once you can't smell anything, you know. Now, I've only got 2 pairs here because it's just too much for me to carry so much around with me. I would have 3 pairs. Now, the sort of materials you could use would be any of the dried herbs, any of the spices. They have very nice smells. Cloves, see, so on. Or lavender is very nice. I don't know really what you have here. I'm sure you have lots of plants with aromatic leaves. But when the leaves were dried, could be used. But mixed herbs like thyme, rosemary, sage. Coffee is a nice one. So you put one set on one side of the table and the other on the other side. And you take the lids off. It perhaps is wise too to have a mark on the lid and the same mark on the bottom of the jar. You see here, I have these dots. It seems to have got washed off the lids. Because then afterwards you replace the right top on the right jar. And then the smells don't get mixed up. Because they have to permeate everything. You must not use wooden containers. You need something that will really wash, like glass or plastic or china, because with wood the smell permeates the wood and it absolutely stinks in a very little while. You know, it's a stale smell. Now you get the child to smell one, and you smell it. Is that enough? It smells nice. Smell it again. Now we keep this one in the middle, and we're going to find more in front of the child. Keep this one in the middle here, and you smell these 2 and see if you can find the one that smells just the same as this one. You can smell this one again if you like. Are those the same? Smell this one then. Now smell this one. Are those the same? Yes? Alright, we put them together. Now see if these 2 are the same. Those are the same? Alright, put them together. And so he pairs them by smell. You can have more than one set. You can also use liquid smells. Just have a little bit of folded white cotton or cotton wool in the bottom of the jar, and just 1 or 2 drops. Again, sort of thing, any scent you use, like eau de cologne, lavender water. Vanilla, but you don't use that as a scent. But some flavorings are good, yes. So the scent you use, and any flavoring like vanilla. Peppermint essence. What else do you use in it? Almond. Yes. Yes, any of these.
Why were those, are the hairs not the same color? Or everything else, like the wooden stuff?
I see, well, this is quite important, you see, that those 2 are a pair and these 2 are a pair, because you know in the beginning that the blue are going to pair with the red in this case. Indeed, it could be pink and yellow or green and blue, it could be any 2 colors. But then I know to put all of these one side of the table, all the blue one side and all red the other side. And I know that one of these is going to match one of these. If they were all the same color, I'd be re-smelling the same ones all the time.
I'm saying, like, why would the ones that smell the same be red and... Like, they can't...
These are 2 different smells.
But when they finish, they can't look to see if they're right. like with the wood, they can't.
Well, they were all the same colour, they couldn't either. If you want them to be able to see afterwards, you put a coloured spot on the bottom. And those two, as I did, mine have been washed and the spot's gone, I must redo that. You would have two spots the same colour if your pair was right. And you would have the same spot or whatever you write on the lid. So the right lid always went back onto the right container.
Since you only have 3, couldn't you have a pair of red, a pair of blue, and a pair of green?
Oh no, that would be very confusing. The child would just put the 2 red together, the 2 blue together, 2 green together without even smelling.
They'd use it.
You want 3 of one colour and 3 of the other.
And they don't use the dots on the bottom of them. They don't become aware of that.
Well, if they do, they do. I mean, it's most children like the game of smelling, you know. They're not doing anything for rewards or stars, so there would be no point in just matching them by the spots. But then you can have dry smells or liquid smells. And it's rather nice to have in a classroom certain things that have very nice smells. If we have a garden, we grow some of the plants for the particularly nice flower smell or the particularly nice leaf smell. So if you don't have a garden, you could have 1 or 2 things in pots. I don't know if you have that geranium, which has a very finely divided leaf. The leaf has a lovely smell. The flower is very inconspicuous, which is strange for the geranium family, but the leaf has a lovely smell. And then do you here make lavender bags to put in your potpourri? So again, it's nice to grow some of the herbs with them, or some of the plants with them, so they become more aware, see what is around them. All right? But I think that's enough for you this morning. So we'll get started about 1:30. Take about an hour for your sandwiches, not more.